Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to dive into the fascinating story behind one of the best sci-fi horror remakes ever made. Of course I'm talking about The Fly from 1986. This is how a small idea turned into an early 80s body horror masterpiece. In the early 80s, co-producer Kip Oman had an idea to remake the 1958 classic The Fly. He brought the concept to screenwriter Charles Pogue, the legend behind Psycho 3 and the early 80s DOA classic, who interestingly had never seen the original film. And after reading the short story and watching the movie, Pogue was intrigued. So he partnered with producer Stuart Cornfield, and those two quickly set the project in motion. They pitched the idea to 20th Century Fox, and the studio was enthusiastic, so they gave Pogue the green light and the budget for the first draft. His early version kind of followed the original story very closely, but he and Cornfield agreed that the transformation should happen slowly, allowing the audiences to watch the horror unfold. The Fox executives unfortunately didn't love the script though, and they pulled their support. Still, Cornfield managed to negotiate a deal. If he could find outside financing, Fox would handle the distribution. This is when Mel Brooks stepped in. Yes, the same Mel Brooks known for comedies like Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein. Through his production company, Brooks Films, Brooks had already proven that he could handle serious projects. He'd actually worked with David Lynch on The Elephant Man. So Cornfield brought The Fly to Brooks, and he liked the concept, but he wanted a different approach to the writing. Pogue was quickly replaced by Wallen Green for a rewrite, but that version didn't land either. So eventually Pogue was brought back to refine the script, a move that kept the film's vision on track. Next came the hunt for a director. The team first approached David Cronenberg, but he was too busy working on Total Recall at the time. That's a movie obviously we all wanted to see. So they turned to rising British filmmaker named Robert Bierman. And after seeing one of Robert Bierman's first short films, they were really impressed, and they brought him to Los Angeles to meet Pogue. Now I have to go slightly off topic here and mention that Robert Bierman went on to direct one of my favourite ever movies, 1989's Vampire Kiss, starring the amazing Nick Cage. I love that movie, and if you haven't seen it, you really should. Anyway, back to The Fly. Before production could really begin, tragedy struck, and Bierman's daughter unfortunately died in an accident while the family were on holiday in South Africa. He was completely heartbroken, of course, so he had to step away from the project. Now Mel Brooks gave him all the time he needed, but eventually had to release him for his contract because he knew he couldn't return. And it was a devastating moment really for everyone involved. So with Bierman gone, the future of The Fly was uncertain, and then Cronenberg came back into the picture. And his return would transform this project completely, shaping it into the unforgettable film we know today. So The Fly nearly didn't happen, and it was really a mix of persistence, tragedy and creative collaboration that would set the stage for one of the greatest sci-fi horror films ever made. When Cronenberg finally stepped in, the tone of The Fly completely shifted. He'd already built a reputation for blending science fiction with psychological and physical horror in films like Scanners, Videodrome and The Brood. But unlike those earlier works, The Fly gave him the opportunity to pair his fascination with transformation and decay with a deep emotional love story. He read Pogue's script and he saw real potential, but he wanted to rewrite it from the ground up. So Cronenberg restructured the narrative. He deepened the characters and made the transformation more than just about monster effects. To him, it was a tragic, almost operatic story about mortality, identity, and the limits of human ambition. And Mel Brooks, to his credit, gave Cronenberg complete creative control. Brooks even made a point of keeping his name off all marketing so audiences wouldn't assume The Fly was a comedy. Let's talk about casting. Cronenberg knew that for the story to work, the audiences had to care deeply about the characters, especially the character Seth Brundle. Now, Jeff Goldblum wasn't the obvious choice here. Some executives were really worried that it was kind of too quirky, too unconventional, but Cronenberg saw that very quality as essential. He knew Goldblum could make Brundle both endearing and unsettling at the same time. A man whose curiosity and charm would give way to obsession and madness. Then came Gina Davis as Veronica Quaife. At the time, she was a rising star, and her chemistry with Goldblum was frankly undeniable. And this was both off and on screen actually, since the two were actually dating during the time of filming. Their real life connection added authenticity to the emotional core of this movie. When Brundle's transformation becomes irreversible, it's Davids' heartbreak that grounds the horror. Together they give the film its beating heart, two people trapped between love and scientific catastrophe. Cronenberg's version of The Fly is often remembered for its stunning practical effects, and for good reason. Makeup artist Chris Wallace, who had worked on such classics as Gremlins and Raiders of the Lost Ark, he designed the gradual transformation of Goldblum. And instead of a big shock reveal, the process was really slow, isn't it? And it kind of transforms in stages. Hair loss, lesions, fingernails falling off teeth. Every step more grotesque than the last, and ultimately tragically human. Now the team used layers of latex, puppetry, animatronics, and I think the effects are awesome and they still hold up today. Poor old Goldblum had to spend hours and hours in the makeup chair every single day. Because I think Cronenberg focused on emotion. Even when the visuals turned into nightmares, he shot scenes with empathy, and the result isn't just horror, it's heartbreak. Like a lot of Cronenberg films, this was filmed in Toronto over several months in 1985. And he used his usual crew. We had cinematographer Mark Irwin, the composer Howard Shaw, and production designer Carol Spear. Shaw's haunting score balances beauty and dread, echoing the tragic love story at the heart of this film. When the film was released in 1986, audiences and critics were stunned. It's gory, yes, but it's also deeply human. It's a rare blend of intellect, terror and emotion. The film actually won an Academy Award for Best Makeup and cemented Cronenberg as a complete master of body horror. And more importantly, I think it redefined what a remake could and should be. When The Fly finally hit cinemas in late 1986, audiences didn't know what to expect. The trailers kind of promised a monster movie, but what they got was something more complex. They praised Jeff Goldblum's performance, calling it career-defining, and Gina Davis also received equal acclaim for grounding the film's emotional core. The movie became both a critical and commercial success, earning over 60 million worldwide on frankly a really modest budget. And it brought prestige to a genre that's often dismissed as lowbrow. Suddenly horror could be tragic, intimate and philosophical, which all best horror movies are, I think. Ultimately, The Fly isn't just terrifying, it's moving. Now, Cronenberg's approach to transformation, both physical and emotional, has left a lasting mark on cinema. The Fly became a defining example of body horror, where terror comes not from monsters or ghosts, but from our own fragile biology turning against us. And it's inspired a whole new wave of filmmakers who saw horror as a tool for kind of exploring identity, disease and decay. The Substance being a prime example here. And the timing was also significant because it was in the middle of the 1980s during the height of the AIDS epidemic, and many viewers kind of saw this as an allegory for illness, contagion and society fear. Cronenberg has never confirmed that reading, but he hasn't denied it either. Ultimately, the film The Fly reflects the anxieties of its time. And in many ways, those themes are still eerie relevant today. Now, after its success, 20th Century Fox naturally wanted more. So in 1989, they released The Fly 2, directed by Chris Wallace, the same makeup artist who won the Oscar for the original. Now the sequel followed the son of Seth Brundle, played by Eric Stoltz, as he struggles with the genetic consequences of his father's experiment. While The Fly 2 didn't reach the same emotional depth or critical acclaim of the original, it did continue the story's tragic DNA, and to me did deliver some truly impressive practical effects. Now, over the years, there's been lots of talk of remakes and reimaginings. Cronenberg himself once said he considered a revisit rather than a remake. He liked the idea of exploring the ethics of cloning and genetic engineering, but yet these projects haven't materialised. But there's still hope and time. Decades later, The Fly has continued to inspire filmmakers, writers, and I think even scientists to see it as a cautionary tale about the limits of human ambition. It's a blend of intellect, emotion and visceral horror that's made it one of the most studied genre films of its time. Goldblum's performance remains iconic, equal parts tragic and terrifying, while Cronenberg's direction stands out as a masterclass in balancing horror with humanity. Few films manage to make audiences cry and cringe at the same time, and The Fly does both flawlessly. So in the end, The Fly isn't just about mutation or monstrosity, it's about love, loss, horrifying beauty of being a human being. He didn't just remake a 1950s movie, he redefined what horror could and should be. That's enough from me. Thanks very much for joining. As always, if you do like what I do and enjoy listening to my rambles, a like and subscribe is always welcome. And please don't be afraid to leave a comment. And I'll see you all on the next one.